Hello, class. My name is Randy Knepp, and I'm going to do my presentation on the Aurora Borealis, also known as Northern Lights. This is for our Alaska Earth Science with Lab class, with Mr. Lynn Forbes as our instructor. My agenda is to give you an overview of what exactly Aurora Borealis is, and we'll talk about the origin of the name, and then we'll talk about some cultural and mythical implications of Northern Lights. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty of this class, the scientific explanation. We'll also throw in there what the impact is on Alaska in general. Now, I'm aware that a PowerPoint slide is just supposed to have a few key points that I elaborate on, but I really like this statement in this presentation. So, the Aurora Borealis, commonly known as the Northern Lights, is a natural phenomenon that occurs in the Northern Hemisphere when charged particles, primarily electrons or protons, from the solar wind collide with molecules and atoms in the Earth's atmosphere. The collision results in a colorful display of lights ranging from green and yellow to pink and purple that dance across the night sky. So, how did Aurora Borealis get that name? The name comes from the Roman goddess of dawn, Aurora, and the Greek god of the north wind, Boreas. So combined, you have Aurora Borealis. Now I'm going to talk about the cultural and mythical aspects of the aurora. Many countries have beliefs about what the aurora means, both spiritually and metaphysically. So there's a lot of places like in the Nordic countries where it happens a lot, they have their beliefs, but I'm going to narrow it down to several countries that I feel interesting for no particular reason, just because I'm going to narrow it down. So first we'll talk about France and Italy. The poor residents of France and Italy believed the lights to be a bad omen and that they were heralding the outbreak of anything from a war to plague and death. In Scotland and England, it's said that the lights blazed red in the skies just a few weeks prior to the French Revolution, and they were later considered to have been a sign of the coming strife that they were going to experience. Now, going on to Asia, it is said that many of the early Chinese legends associated with dragons were actually the results of seeing the northern lights. The belief was that the lights were viewed as a celestial battle between good and evil dragons who breathe fire across the firmament. In Japan, the belief is that a child conceived underneath the northern lights will be blessed with good looks, intellect, and good fortune. So some people warn me that if you go to Chena Hot Springs, don't bring your kids in the winter, because a lot of times Japanese people will come over specifically to conceive under the northern lights. Not sure how true that is, but it's been said. Now let's move on to North America. In Canada, I'm going to talk about the Cree natives. They believed that the aurora was part of life's circle and were the spirits of the dead who remained in the sky, but apart from earthly people. They believed that the lights were spirits of these departed friends and relatives trying to communicate with those they had left behind. In Alaska, Inuit tribes considered the aurora to be the spirits of dead humans playing a ball game using a walrus's skull as the ball. Now, the Nunavik Island natives had almost the same theory, but they reversed it. So, in their beliefs, they thought the aurora were walrus spirits playing with the heads of dead humans. So, pretty interesting how they are similar but totally different. Now, let's talk about the science behind the aurora. So, the northern lights are not just a visual spectacle, they also have significant scientific components. So, we'll talk about that. Now, the northern lights are a natural phenomenon that occurs in high latitude regions of the northern hemisphere, northern only, by the way, and the technical aspects of the spectacle are pretty fascinating and complex. So we'll delve into some of the essentials to understand how this occurs. So first we'll talk about solar activity. The northern lights are caused by solar activity. Now, that is when high energy particles, mainly electrons and protons, are continually emitted by the sun into space. Now, when these particles interact with the Earth's magnetic field and enter the atmosphere, they collide with gas particles, which are mainly oxygen and nitrogen, and that causes them to emit light. Now, the color of the aurora depends on the type of gas that it's collided with. So, when it collides with oxygen, it generally produces green and red light, and when it collides with nitrogen, blue and purple lights are emitted. Solar wind is another component of the aurora, and the strength and frequency of the solar wind influences how intense the aurora are. So the solar wind is a stream of charged particles that flow in from the sun, and the more intense they are, the more particles will enter the Earth's atmosphere, and that'll cause more frequent and intense aurora. And that'll make your app on your phone go crazy. Another component of the aurora are geomagnetic storms. These storms play an important role in the intensity and the frequency of the northern lights. They occur when the Earth's magnetic field is disturbed by the interaction of charged particles that come from the sun. These storms can cause the auroras to occur closer to the equator, so further south, and make them appear brighter and more colorful. Finally, I'm going to talk about the aurora oval. Now, the auroras occur in a circular zone around the magnetic poles of the Earth. So we learned the difference between geographic poles and the magnetic poles. It's the magnetic poles that affect the aurora. This phenomena explains why northern lights are visible in certain regions of the Earth and not others. So you see them mainly in Norway, Sweden, Canada, and Alaska, but not other places around the globe because of this aurora oval. Now I'm going to talk about the impact, how lucky we are to have northern lights in Alaska. So the impacts are several. They have impact on us economically, spiritually, and scientifically. So economically, tourism in the winter, it's not so dramatically reduced from summertime travel because some people come to Alaska just to see the northern lights. For Randi also, but we're talking about the northern lights. So that increases revenue into our state from tourism. It also attracts scientists who come here to study the northern light phenomenon. So that gives us educational opportunities as well as grant money from the federal government, state government, and sometimes foreign governments by coming here to Alaska to study just what the northern lights are. This is just an example of my own picture that occurred in March. I actually had some friends here from Texas and Germany, and we were out at 49th State, and the app went crazy saying we had a 97% chance of seeing the northern lights. So I went up to Campbell Airstrip and shot a bunch of photos. Now, while it was impressive to see those northern lights, which I saw were mostly green that night, my native friend Robert decided to drive along the Seward Highway. And this is a picture he took. So he outdid me pretty good. I've never seen this intense colors anywhere, but he captured them. So at this point, I'd like to see if you have any questions.